Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of Cinematically Late, the ongoing series where I revisit movies that I may have missed that have been in theaters or maybe are now out on home media now that I can watch it during this COVID-19 situation. Whatever the situation may be, I'm touching on these movies, a couple of different points, maybe maximum of 5, just talking about these quick little things that I thought about these movies that I felt like I needed to get off my chest. Now, today's video, we are talking about a movie that recently came out with video on demand that was in theaters for a very short time before this COVID-19 shut down theaters, and that is Bloodshot starring Vin Diesel. Now, I actually just watched this movie tonight, first time watching it, and so I don't really know how to feel about it. I was not that excited because Bloodshot, in my mind, now this is caveat here. I know nothing essentially about this character from comics or anything like that. Nothing. The only thing that I know is that Jason David Frank, the original Green Ranger / White Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, portrays him rather in the Ninjak universe on YouTube and their whole sort of universe that they have there. I know he portrays him. I've seen a bunch of his stuff. I follow him on social media, so I know what his version looks like. Now, this version starring Vin Diesel, the artwork of it looked cool in terms of concept art. Now, in terms of the actual movie, let's go ahead and get into that. Point number 1, starting off with the thing that I just said, I think I would have preferred to see the Jason David Frank version of Bloodshot. I think he just looks a little bit better in the part. Vin Diesel is that, I guess, sort of portrayal of the American badass more than anything else. But Jason David Frank, I mean, he kills it. Essentially, Bloodshot seems like that silent killer type. Very opposite kind of to a Deadpool in that regard. But I feel like his version just looks so much better. He even has the official like white grayish shirt with the actual red Bloodshot on the chest, whereas this version is just Vin Diesel with a glowy chest every so often. They kind of make his skin grayish and whitish, like 1 1/4 times I would count it at the absolute most. It really wasn't that much of a portrayal of the character. They even barely said the character's name, maybe a handful of times. They didn't even call him Bloodshot, for crying out loud, not even just like a code name. That was kind of frustrating. But I just don't feel like this would have been the version that I would have made. It just felt like a very weird version where there were like 3 or 4 different types of movies smashed into one, and it just kind of felt bland and boring for the most part. Very mediocre from top to bottom. And speaking of mediocre, they not only, point number 2 here, they not only make it like a mediocre movie, but they follow several tropes of Vin Diesel within the entire thing. Now, the biggest one, I think, was the replacement. I don't even know the main female lead's character's name. I probably should have looked it up for this video. But essentially, she's a Michelle Rodriguez replacement for Vin Diesel's character. Like, she looks kind of like her, sounds kind of like her, and acts kind of like her. So if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and whatever, looks like a duck, it's probably going to be Michelle Rodriguez opposite Vin Diesel here. I mean, they were pretty much identical parallels. It was kind of crazy and hard to disconnect that relationship that he had with Michelle Rodriguez in the Fast and Furious franchise to whatever the hell was going on in this movie. What if you want to call it a relationship, because they didn't even kind of have that. So that was really weird. Second trope they followed was Vin Diesel, obviously in his signature wife beater. The one that killed me the most was pretty early on in the movie. He's actually like a soldier, and then like he gets back from his deployment, and his blonde girlfriend's there, and he like legit, some army guy was like, hey, let me take that bag for you. Probably doesn't happen in the army. I've never been in the military, but I'm assuming that shit probably never happens. You carry your own bag. But he literally like sees her, takes off his like army top, whatever you want to call it, uniform, and of course he's got like the signature wife beater underneath. It looked ridiculous. I'm 99% sure that no military person wears that directly underneath their actual uniforms. I could be wrong. Sound off in the comments if you are that person. But it was just so campy and so stupid, and I thought I was just rolling my eyes the entire time at that. That's all I'm going to ramble on about that for right now. Point number 3 is that this movie was ridiculous and over the top, kind of following into that whole taking off of the shirt thing. It just felt stupid for the most part. I didn't feel like there was an actual story. They try and put a twist into it, but it was very much a twist that was not very twisty. Like, it was something that's been done several times before. It felt very much reminiscent of, I don't want to say source code because I feel like that was even different. It's just like one of those movies that they repeat the same thing over and over again, but maybe change a minor detail or things like that. I think Vantage Point was one of those movies I remember not liking. That just do the same thing over and over, and it just kind of gets boring, and it's not really fun or interesting to watch, especially for a character who's supposed to be such a badass. Just essentially making him be a repetitive robot for almost 2 hours, which, by the way, this movie is way too long for what's in it. It's just way too much. And I bet you money, if you take out every single slow-mo moment of this movie, you would cut the runtime from about close to 2 hours to probably about an hour and a half, maybe about an hour 20, stretching it, because there is a lot of like those slow-mo where the sound goes like all that. That happens at least a handful of times, or probably 2 handfuls of times, to the point where you can take out a good chunk of the movie and it would be the exact same thing. That's how ridiculous and over the top it is. The final action piece just kind of sucked. Not interesting whatsoever. They introduce a lot of new tech that these characters use and as part of their sort of personalities and things that they can do, and then they never really explained where they got it from or what even the hell the purpose of it is, which was kind of frustrating because this guy has like this backpack with like spider arms all of a sudden for no reason that they never explained earlier in the movie, unless I totally missed it. Just ridiculous, over the top, and stupid. Point number 4, which leads right into that, is that this movie is action, the acting, and the story are mediocre. There's nothing surprising here. There's nothing cool. There's nothing like fun. There's very little. It's just so bland. Like, even Toby Kebbell's in this movie. He's a great actor, but he, for whatever reason, he ends up in these terrible movies, and like time and time again. The Michelle Rodriguez replacement, who's, I apologize to this actress's, to her in general, number 1 for being in the movie, but number 2 for being with that Michelle Rodriguez replacement. Vin Diesel was phoning it in. There was a point where he was talking, but his mouth wasn't moving, so he was doing his grumbly, gravelly voice thing, which I thought was kind of annoying. Yeah, it's just sort of mediocre and bland. Guy Pearce didn't seem that threatening for what he was doing, even though he kind of like chokes out a girl, kind of, but without being near her. It's really weird, and it's just mediocre and kind of bland. Probably not worth the purchase, but I would wait for a rent. I mean, it might be worth watching for those dumb, stupid action movies, which, by the way, you should check out last week's Cinematically Late, which I talk about a really dumb action movie that's actually fun, and that was Gemini Man. So maybe you might disagree, might flip-flop and think Bloodshot was better. You might think Gemini Man was better, but let me know in the comment section down below. But essentially, point number 5 is that the only person who was really worth a damn in this entire movie was, I apologize if I butcher his name, Lamorne Morris, the guy from like New Girl, and he was in a couple other things, I think like Game Night. He's a comedian. He's a super funny guy, but he's the best part. He has a couple good jokes, and other than that, there's really nothing worth watching in this movie. He was easily the best part, but he doesn't even show up until maybe halfway, 3/4 through, and he's the best thing about the movie, and that's kind of not good when the best part is such a small character that probably wasn't meant to mean anything really at all. Maybe he's something in the comics. I don't really know. I know nothing about the comics. But is it worth a watch if you can pay about dirt cheap for it? Sure. But I wouldn't recommend buying it. It's just a Vin Diesel dumb action movie. If you want to watch a dumb Vin Diesel action movie, any of the Fast and Furious will do you, or even like a XXX Return of Xander Cage. That was a lot more fun than what this one was. But it's all right. We're checking out. I mean, not that great. If you have seen it already, make sure you let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. Really, that's all my thoughts on Bloodshot. I don't really have much else to talk about. I I really don't want to talk about it more, to be honest. I was really hoping for more from it, but it just kind of sadly disappointed. But make sure while you're down there letting me know your thoughts, you hit the like as well as subscribe, as we do have a new Cinematically Late every single Thursday. Make sure you've already checked out my ones for Knives Out as well as Gemini Man, which are already on my channel, as well as subscribe for future episodes. Also, if you have any suggestions as to what you may want me to see me review later or have on this series at a later time, drop that in the comment section down below. But other than that, that's all I have for right now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.